Hey gang, admittedly, most Fraternity songs are pretty bad, but I've got one for you today that is not only a great song, but it has an uncredited cameo by a musical legend. See if you can figure out who it is, today on the 78 RPM channel. Hello, and welcome to the 78 RPM channel. Whether you're new to 78s or an advanced collector, this is your source for information, research, and music about 78 RPM records, cylinders, and radio transcriptions. Hey gang, and welcome to the 78 RPM channel. During the 1920s, college life was all the rage. Campus life, the early jazz age, the flapper lifestyle, they all found a home on college campuses. Songs such as Collegiate, Collegiate Sam, Doin' the Raccoon, they were all college-based stuff, and the musical world took note, cranking out a lot of songs that really would have had broad appeal not only to people who were in college, but people who kind of enjoyed that lifestyle. However, before that, in 1922, records started showing up that were much more limited in their appeal. Aeolian Vocalion began producing recordings under the auspices of a company called the University Record Corporation, and they did this for some of the largest fraternities around the country. These discs make a really nice mini collection if you do manage to find them. The brilliantly colored labels against the orange shellac background, it's going to grab your attention if you do ever get lucky and find any of these in the wild. One thing about these records is that they didn't sell very well, possibly because their appeal was limited to current and former members of the fraternities that were on the labels. In addition, a lot of these songs not really toe tappers. They're kind of the equivalent of the official fraternity hymn. It should also be noted that these were really expensive records for the time, which probably contributed to their poor sales and relative scarcity. Alan Sutton, in his book about record companies and producers, mentioned that these discs retailed for $2 each. That was almost triple the price of a popular 78. Now, Fraternity House Records of Indiana eventually took over from University Records, and about a year later they started using the Jeanette factory to produce discs instead of the Vocalion factory. Existing stock was part of the acquisition, and a special sticker was applied over the University Records portion of the label, informing consumers of this change. You can see that sticker here at the bottom of this label. Following that, Fraternity began to use their own spooky, secret society-looking labels. And like most college fads, this one faded pretty quickly, but every now and then a frat would get together and do a recording, either for a show they were producing or for a fundraiser. As for fraternity records that were made after World War II, I have exactly one, and it's the one I'm going to play for you today. This song was recorded for and by members of the Kappa Sigs, specifically the Kappa Sigs at the University of Indiana, and it is without a doubt the best frat song I have ever encountered. The title is He Rambled. In the mid-1960s, an LP was produced containing songs by Kappa Sig. Fun fact, if you do find a copy of that LP, the guitarist and banjo player was a studio musician named Glenn Campbell. I have no idea why I threw that in there, it's just kind of a fun fact. Now, one of the songs that was on that LP is also on this 78 RPM disc. When the Lights of the Chapel Are Low. It's a tad sentimental, it's almost schlocky. And the second song, which is on the same side of this disc, is also pretty much in the same vein. It's entitled Kappa Sigma Girl. The fun begins, however, when you flip this disc over and you're met with this amazing label. Okay, it's not that great. It doesn't look like much, but this is one of the most amusing, well-written frat songs I have ever encountered. It's fun, it's clever, it's well-written, it's well-performed, and oddly enough, it doesn't seem to appear on any list I was able to find of official songs of Kappa Sig. So if you are a Kappa Sig, you should probably remedy this situation, because for a variety of reasons, this one is a lot better than most of the songs you sing. What I'm going to do now is play a little bit of this song for you. And remember, there is a famous musician doing a cameo on this record. See if you can identify them.
A freshman came to college and he thought he'd join a frat. But first he took a look around to see where he was at. And just because he was the best the town had ever seen, why, the colors that he wore next day were scarlet, white, and green. He rambled up to heaven just to see the fellows there, and all the gang was loafing up and down the golden stair. Some were smoking cigarettes and some were dancing jigs. Every one of them were friends of his, they all were Kappa Sigs. Well, he rambled, he rambled, he rambled all around, in and out of town. Oh, he rambled, he rambled. He rambled till he put the colors on Billy the Goat. He had a talk with Moses and he interviewed St. Paul. He met the wives of Solomon and kissed them one and all. And as they all lined up for drinks before the heavenly bar, every angel on his shirt front wore the crescent and the star. He rambled down to Hades just to see the poor lost souls. The essays and Sigma news were roasting on the coals. The betas and the Delta used to sizzle had begun, while the Kappa Sigs and velvet suits were watching all the fun. The Sigma guys were laid aside and placed upon the shelf, while in walked Beelzebub, the king of hell himself. He gave them all a friendly grip, for he could not renege. Yes, he was a charter member and a damn good Kappa Sig. Adam was the first man that the Kappa Sigs took in. Solomon was the wisest man that ever wore the pin. Alexander was alright, except he had the itch. And if Julius Caesar comes to life, well, Blade's the son of a gun.
Yes, he rambled, he rambled, he rambled all around, in and out of town. Yes, he rambled, he rambled, he rambled till they put the colors on.
Many a Kappa Sigma on his journey from afar has had his path illumined by the crescent and the star. We'll sing hurrah for Kappa Sig, we'll sing until we die. Yes, we'll sing hurrah for Kappa Sig in heaven by and by.
Okay, so who was the cameo? The distinct voice of the person who sang the solo verse is probably your first clue. If you didn't catch that, if you look at the other side and look at the credits, there's a clue on there as well. The piano player and the unique voice singing the solo verse is Kappa Sig Hoagy Carmichael. Hoagy Carmichael graduated from the University of Indiana as a Kappa Sig in 1922, and over the course of the next few years and decades, he frequently made it back to the University of Indiana to do Kappa Sig events. Now, the matrix number on this record begins with HD7, indicating that this disc was not only produced by RCA Victor, but it was done so in 1947, making this my only post-war frat disc. But again, it is definitely my favorite. Now, I know of 4 copies of this disc. I have my copy. There is a copy in the archives at the University of Indiana, and there are 2 other copies that I know of that are in private hands. However, the Kappa Sig website says there are 300,000 Kappa Sigs out there, so I would assume there are other copies of this record out there, but most people don't know it's a Hoagy Carmichael disc. One thing to remember is that while Hoagy does appear in the composer credits on the other side, there are no composers listed on this side. And there's no indication on the label that Hoagy Carmichael is performing, either on piano or the soloist. There's also no mention of Carmichael's performance if you look this record up online, for instance on Discogs. So, collector's hint here, you may be able to find a copy for yourself before word gets around, and maybe you can pick up one of these. It is one of Carmichael's rarest discs. I hope you enjoyed this quick look back at what was an absolutely amazing frat song from the guys at Kappa Sig, along with Hoagy Carmichael. We'll see you next time on the 78 RPM channel.